I'm going to pronounce the words for you so I know that you know how to say them. Gaudy, vicarious, prosaic, imminent, icon, somber, ominous, latent, disheveled, inclement, quarry, audacious, vernacular, vivacious, and baffling. Here's one more clue. It might be easier for you to remember the words if you take your cards and you arrange them in some way that seems logical for you. For example, you can group them by parts of speech, you can group them alphabetically, you can group them by sound, anything that seems logical to you, maybe by length, put the longer words together, put the shorter words together, so that there's some pattern in your mind that helps make it easier for you to remember the words. Now, we've mentioned using a dictionary and a thesaurus a great deal in this program. I know that looking up words is a nuisance. Well, so is exercise, but they both work really well. And now, actually, you don't have a whole lot of excuses because you can look up the words online, you can look up the words in a book, they have little pocket programs that you can use. But the dictionary really is your best friend when it comes to knowing how to pronounce a word, how to use the word's origin, the word's part of speech, synonyms and antonyms for the word. And the act of looking it up, just looking up the word, helps you remember it because you've used it to look it up. There are many different kinds of dictionaries. For example, we have abridged and unabridged. An abridged dictionary is a shortened dictionary. An unabridged dictionary is the complete dictionary. You may never have seen an unabridged dictionary. It looks like a set of encyclopedias because an unabridged dictionary has many, many words. Many of them have all the words that we use. The abridged dictionaries are the ones that you find on your computer programs. They're the ones that you find in your little pocket dictionaries or in your pocket computer programs. And those are perfectly fine for everyday use. We also have specialized dictionaries. We have dictionaries of foreign phrases. We have dictionaries of regional phrases because in different parts of the country we use different words. For example, in some parts of the country we refer to that fizzy drink as soda, but in other parts of the country it's called pop. For example, in some parts of the country, those long sandwiches that are prepared on big, thick rolls are called heroes. In other parts, they're called hoagies. In other parts, they're called subs. In other parts, they're called grinders. So you may not be familiar with these regionalisms. Now, you're not going to use these in your writing because remember, we said you're going to stay away from slang and things like that. But you do want to know those terms because you want to understand if somebody says, I want a grinder and a pop, and you're used to saying, I want a soda and a hero, what it is the person is talking about. So you might want to consult a dictionary of regional English for those words and phrases. And you'll find there are dictionaries on many, many, many different types of words. There are dictionaries on words that have entered English from other languages. There are even pretend dictionaries. There's a dictionary of Klingonisms from Star Trek. Now, you're not going to consult that dictionary, but be aware that you can find a dictionary for just about any word that you want. In addition, we have a thesaurus. Now, a thesaurus is a collection of synonyms and antonyms. You can get that in a book or you can get that online. And as we mentioned earlier, that's in your program already, most likely. You use a thesaurus by looking up the word and you'll find the list of synonyms and you'll find the list of antonyms. But as I've said before, it's worth saying again, don't just look in the thesaurus or push the button and pick the longest word or the fanciest sounding word. Make sure that that word means exactly what you need it to mean. Because synonym can mean the same or almost the same. And as Mark Twain said, the difference between the word and its first cousin can be the difference between lightning and a lightning bug. A big difference. In addition, every single word in English has a denotation. A denotation starts with D, is its dictionary meaning. That's the word. When you look it up, you find exactly what the meaning is. You may find one meaning, you may find multiple meanings. So a word can have one denotation, two denotations, three, and so on. They are listed in order from most common, that's number one, to least common. However, some words also have a connotation. A connotation is the word's unstated meaning. It's its emotional overtones. It's what we think of when we hear the word. And the connotation can be negative or it can be positive. This is especially difficult for people whose native language is not English, because if they don't understand the word has a connotation, they may use it inappropriately in context. Also, the connotations may change, because as the word is used differently, it gets different connotations. Knowing a difference in connotation helps you get exactly the meaning that you need, and also helps you avoid being embarrassed. And you want to make sure that you use the word correctly. Here are some examples. The word thin. Synonyms include lean, slender, trim, skinny, lanky, scrawny, gaunt, emaciated, frail, skeletal, bony, underweight, malnourished, and anorexic. Thin may or may not have a connotation depending on who you talk to, but you know that slender has a positive connotation. When you hear the word slender, you think that's a good thing. But when you hear the words emaciated, frail, skeletal, bony, malnourished, they all have negative connotations. You don't want to say to somebody, boy, you are really emaciated. Yes, it means thin, but it means they are so thin that they are almost skeletal. Here's the opposite. Take the word fat. Hearty, robust, curvy, curvaceous. They all have positive connotations. If somebody says he's hearty looking, that's a good thing. But you don't want to be called chunky, heavy, overweight, or obese. They have negative connotations. So be aware that a synonym and an antonym may be neutral, but it may also be positive or negative. So now what I would like you to do is to pause the program and determine the connotation of each word in each pair. Put a plus for a positive connotation and a dash, a negative sign, for a negative one. Then come back. Now, I'm sure what you figured out is in each pair, the denotations, the dictionary meanings, are virtually identical, but the connotations are worlds apart. A know-it-all is a negative connotation. It implies someone who's a blowhard, someone who is always sharing knowledge that nobody particularly wants to know. So that's got a negative sign. But a sage also means a very wise person, but that has a positive connotation. We think of a wise person who is a good teacher and someone we want to go to. Thrifty and cheap both mean someone who is careful with their money, but thrifty is positive. Cheap is negative. Vain and confident, similar or identical denotations, but opposite connotations. To be vain is negative. To be confident is positive. You'd much rather be described as confident than vain. Bold and reckless. Someone who is bold goes out there, has got spirit, has got spunk. We think, an explorer, Eric the Red, positive. Someone who's reckless, we think someone is a daredevil. We think someone is careless. Completely negative. If you're steadfast, That means that you have the faith of your convictions. You take a stand and you don't deviate from it because you know you're right. It's a positive thing. But obstinate is the opposite. It means you dig your heels in and you get stubborn and you get petulant. Simplistic and uncomplicated are the same. Something simplistic is negative. Something uncomplicated is positive because it implies that it's easy. Now, as I said earlier, the denotations and the connotations of a word can change over time. For example, take terrific and awesome. They used to have negative, almost fearful connotations. Awesome meant full of awe, and that was a fearful thing. You would be afraid. Now, both of those words have highly positive connotations. It's terrific means it's great. It's awesome means it's great. Whereas many years ago, those were negative words. So as we can tell, a word's connotation can change. And words that have virtually identical denotations, dictionary meanings, can have wildly opposite connotations. So what this means is that you've got to look up the words in a dictionary to make sure that you're getting exactly the connotation as well as the denotation that you need. Now, another great way to learn words is to take them apart. I did that earlier when I took apart a word I showed you, omni and potent. Omni, all, potent is powerful. Many, many, many words can be taken apart into their affixes, their roots, their suffixes, and their prefixes. Let's take a look at the base form of the word. That's the root of a word. What's really nice about this is if you learn just a couple of roots, you find that you learn many, many words. As I had showed you with locu, elocution, loquacious. You learn locu, suddenly I've got two words out of one root. Now, some roots can also function as words. For example, graph is a root, but it's also a word. Term is a root, but it's also a word. Pater is a root, it's a word. So you can use them as words, or you can use them to build words. Others, as we said, you have to build with. So, for example, prim, P-R-I-M, you have to build on. You have to add, let's say, al, add the suffix. You get primal, which means first. Well, as you probably know, English has words from many other languages. Many of our words come from ancient Greece. And so by learning some Greek roots, you learn a lot of English words. Here are a couple of Greek roots that are especially useful. The first one is andr, A-N-D-R. It means man. For example, androgen, which is the male hormone. So we've combined A-N-D-R with O-G-E-N to form that word. Arch, which means first. We have the archbishop. He is the first or the highest bishop. Gen, which means race or birth, as in genetic, means pertaining to genes. Geo means earth, as in geography, mapping the earth. Helio means sun, as in heliocentric, the sun at the center of our solar system. Meter is measure, and altimeter is a device that measures altitude. Polit, P-O-L-I-T, citizen. Cosmopolitan means worldly. Thermo, heat. Thermostat is a device for regulating temperature. Zoo means animal. Zoology is the study of animals. Now, before we go on, these roots are tremendously useful, but not in 100% of the cases, because we've taken roots from other languages that are very, very similar. So, for example, we have gen, which as a Greek root means race or birth. But in the word genuflect, it doesn't have the same meaning because it has a different origin. So in that case, you might try it, but if you're not sure, you would look it up in a dictionary and you'd find it's a Latin root. And it means to bend from the knee. So if it doesn't make sense, if you've used your root, you've figured it out, and you say to yourself, you know, it still doesn't seem to be right because I've used my context clues. Something's got to be wrong here. Don't take this as infallible. Check it in a dictionary to make sure that it really works. Again, one more time. Use your roots, figure it out, check it in context, and if it seems illogical, check it in a dictionary. Now we've got some Latin roots. Vor means to eat, to consume. A carnivore is a meat eater. Carn, C-A-R-N or carne, is meat. Dict is to say, as in dictate, which is an authoritative command. Duct means to lead. Something that is ductile is easily molded. It can be easily led. Fact means to make. A factory is a place where things are made. Grad is go or step. So to degrade is to go down or to corrupt something. Ject is to throw. To reject is to throw aside. To eject, for example, is to throw out. Pel or pulls is to move. To impel is to urge. Now take a look again at pel and pulls. I put that one here on purpose because you'll see there are two different spellings for the same root. A lot of the roots have slight variations in spelling. So if you see a slight variation, it looks a little bit familiar. See if you can figure it out from the variation. And that's, of course, because language has changed over the years. If it makes sense, you're probably all right. If it doesn't make sense, check the word in a dictionary or use your context clues again. The prefix is a letter or a group of letters that goes at the beginning of a word to change its meaning. And the word prefix itself has a prefix. If you look at the word pre, it means before. So you can remember that a prefix goes before because pre means before. Learning just a few prefixes can give you many, many, many more words, same as you learned with roots, because you can decode these words by figuring out what the prefix is. So now you know roots and you learn prefixes, soon you'll learn the suffixes as well. Just as with roots, some prefixes are words all by themselves. For example, super is a prefix, but it can also be a word. Some words have more than one prefix. For example, reinvigorate. Re is a prefix. In is a prefix. So I've got two prefixes in that word. Just a note on prefixes. When you are using these words to upgrade your writing, a word that has a prefix, you do not add or subtract any letters. So if a prefix is added to a word, it is added and the spelling does not change. So remember that, because sometimes they look a little bit odd, but that's how they are. Here's some examples. A means not. Atypical is not typical. Anti means against. Antipathy is hatred. It's a feeling against. Aster or astro means star, as in asteroid. It's a star-like body. And that's one that has two slightly different ways to spell it, two slightly different variations. Auto is self, and automobile is a self-moving vehicle. Poly means many. Polychromatic means many colors. Knowing Latin and Greek prefixes for numbers can help you figure out a tremendous number of words. So these are extremely useful prefixes. Now, uni and mono both mean one. A unicorn and a monocle both use these prefixes. A unicorn is a make-believe, a mythological creature that has one horn. And a unicorn is the one-horned creature. A monocle is a single eyeglass. You sort of stick it right in your eye socket, and it has a string or it has a little stick that holds it on. Bi and di both mean two. Bicycle is a vehicle that has two wheels, bicycle. Dioxide is a molecule that has two oxygen atoms. Tri means three. Trimester is 1/3 of a year. Quad, quart, quater, and tetra all mean four. Quadrilateral is a four-sided shape. Quarter is 1/4 of something. A quatrain is 4 lines of poetry. And a tetrahedron is a four-sided solid. Quint and penta both mean 5. So quintuplets are 5 babies that are born at the same time. Pentameter is a meter with 5 beats. Hexa or sext means 6. A hexapod is a 6-footed, like an insect that would have 6 feet. Sextet, a group of 6. Hepta, sept, means 7. Heptagon is a 7-sided figure. September is the 7th month. Now, if you do your math, you know September is not really the 7th month, but originally September was, so that makes sense. Oct means 8. An octave is 8 musical notes. Nov means 9. November was originally the 9th month of the year. Deca means 10. Decathlon is a competition with 10 parts. So now what I would like you to do is to pause the program and fill in the blanks in each sentence with the appropriate word using what you've learned about prefixes and roots. Then come back. These have circum for around and poly for many. Jacqueline used the formula to determine the distance around the circle. The circumference was 1 meter. Circumference is the distance around the circle. The madrigal was polyphonic. Instead of singing in unison, each singer sang a different melody at the same time. Magellan's voyage is generally credited with being the first successful attempt to circumnavigate the Earth. That shape has 16 sides of equal length. The more sides a polygon has, the closer it can come to looking like a circle. The mayor talked around every question he was asked. He was a true master of the art of circumlocution. The 3 tribes on the island worship similar gods. Their polytheistic beliefs may seem similar, but their ceremonies reveal that they practice vastly different religions. When a square sits inside a circle, the circle is said to circumscribe the square. The ambassador is a true polyglot. Her multilingual abilities enable her to communicate easily with many foreign leaders. Lisa is circumspect about material that she reads